Sigma Male Diaries Podcast. Let's get on with it, y'all.
Let's go.
We can relax, have fun, get a good laugh, get information, and enjoy the show. I mean to do what it do, baby. Sigma Male.
All is well. I hope all is well. I am your host, Nigel McKnight of Sigma Male Diaries. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to allow some of you who are interested in joining my talk. However, I want you to be aware of a disclosure, though, because I do have a podcast platform. I have like 8 to 10 of them. And now I'm also a YouTuber, and I do upload my content to YouTube as well. So if you don't want to be seen as far as your picture and everything like that, your username or your screen name, I will edit that portion out. However, the audio will be presented. Okay. Today I'm going to speak on grief, mourning, and distress. If this is what you're experiencing, because a lot of people have different coping mechanisms when it comes to grief, mourning, or being in distress. A lot of people deal with substance abuse, alcoholism, anger. A lot of people will seclude themselves. They will isolate themselves. They will shut down. They would be angry inside. And the thing about this is that a lot of people take grief and mourning as the same thing. And there are some differences between the two. For example, people deal with grief, they feel sorrow, they feel a whole lot of anxiety and stuff like that, right? Sometimes they refuse to communicate, because they're going through a lot of mental, issues and stuff like that, handling life and dealing with certain situations that they couldn't even fathom would actually take place, right? So grief is basically what we think and feel like, on the inside, like when someone we love dies. And, also it includes fear, loneliness, panic, pain, yearning, anxiety, like I mentioned before, emptiness, And this is all the stuff, in regards to their internal meaning, when it comes to experiencing like some form or some type of loss. Whereas mourning is the outward expressions of our grief, It's the actual expression of one's grief. So, for example, a lot of people said, they cry, they feel somber, they feel lonely. As I said before, a lot of people, they become angry, they lash out. A lot of people, you find them destroying things. They pick fights with people. They become very perplexed and disturbed. What happened to those individuals who decide intentionally ignore what they really have to do because they have to invest the work? They have to face their life knowing the pain that's to come, right? Why are people so afraid to heal? You have a lot of people that rather, remain being a victim, right? Have what most people would call a pity party, who doesn't understand what mental illness is, or depression, anxiety, and other mental illnesses that are out there, right? That may be unknown and unaware to a lot of people because they're not talking about it. That's why when you hear these certain names, when they come up with certain medications for such and such and such, like, what is that? Okay, well, I have someone coming in now, so I'll see what they have to say. Hi, Angela. How you doing? Good evening.
Good evening. How are you tonight, Nigel?
I'm doing great. Hanging in there. It's still kind of humid, though.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. I like your talk to me about grief, mourning, distress. That's a great topic because when people are in that situation, they it's so important and healthy for them to talk about it, because they're going to go through so many different phases and cycles. There could be anger, there could be denial, there could be disappointment, there could be regrets. The list just goes on.
Correct. That's absolutely true, and I definitely agree. Because I always wondered, is it more or less of a psychological thing, whereas people feel as if once they do get help, comes a point in time where they have to let all the other stuff go, which made them the person that they are up until that point, though, rather than taking it as growth, right?
Right.
So
and sometimes that person could, let's say, if they lost someone that they really loved, that person could have been like their whole life, their whole world, and they're just polarized and they don't know what to do or how to move forward or how to move on.
Right. Because I've known a lot of people who been through everything through losing loved ones. I mean, their children, their parents, their siblings,
It can, because I've actually worked with people that have had a child pass away, and it's been extremely traumatic for them, and they remember, and it's really painful for them when it comes to holidays or birthdays, or my daughter would be 18 right now, or I don't get to walk my daughter down the aisle because she's never going to get married. And there's all these, regrets, and it's really hard when you see someone struggling in that place, and trying to be nurturing and supportive, but also allowing them to feel what they're feeling and validate that their feelings are real, instead of telling them to, it's been 10 years now, you should be over it. Well, everyone heals in their own pace and their own time.
Never, a parent not walking her daughter down the aisle, or father, whatever the case may be. Those are things that in a person's mind, those what ifs, or it could have been, or I wonder, that right there that's a lot. The longer it goes by, looking at other people and their children, their family, suppose that a family wasn't able to have children again, and they refused to adopt because maybe they was possibly afraid of once again losing a child.
Correct. Yes, and that's very common, as well, or seeing a child that looks like very similar to your child that you lost. That can bring up a whole sea of emotions, and it's hard because I don't know what the statistics are, but it's really challenging for couples to stay married together when they lose a child, because it shatters them. And some people know how to respond to grief and trauma, and other people don't, because some people were taught to not cry, to stuff your emotions down. But when it's grief, you gotta process it, you gotta let it run its course.
Correct. Because the grief is what I explained earlier, as well as and for those who who just chimed in, that's the inwardness, and that's the mental part of it, the trauma part of it, that can become toxic. Even I've known couples to literally either take themselves out, or the other parent for blaming them, whatever the case was, depending on how the child died, or in that regards, you know what I mean? It's a lot that goes on. Right. That, I mean, it is it's just terrifying.